What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Behind Enemy Lines, a Texas A&M football podcast. I am Tony Catalina from the Austin American-Statesman. Every week we go over the Texas A&M Aggies football, and man, what a big weekend this was. Obviously, I'm by myself here. This one, I felt like this was an episode that wanted to take on solo just to be able to talk about some of the special things we saw Saturday. Obviously, it's in the rear view, but we want to go ahead and just talk about exactly what we saw, what's coming down the pipeline, and as a result of all this, what it looks like for Texas A&M moving forward. So, first and foremost, A&M wins 31-30 over South Carolina in one of the most improbable games you'll probably ever see all season. I mean, it could be years before you see something like that. 27 point going to halftime down 27, find a way to win that football game is just super impressive. Obviously, halftime going into the first half there, it was about as bad as it could be for a Texas A&M football team who didn't look like that at all. Now they went in trailing to LSU a couple of weeks prior, 18-14, so not as severe. They had probably one of the worst drives I've ever seen with the block punt, the Marcel Reed almost doing intentional grounding, almost doing an interception. They were just bad snap. There was a lot of bad football in that one drive against LSU. But for A&M, that was the worst half of football they've played all season long. Right, there's no way around it. Marcel Reed was struggling to see the field. Credit to South Carolina for doing some things, with their defense, kind of the way they were playing, they're scheming up the zones, dropping into, drag and crosser, so trying to make things uncomfortable for Marcel, and it worked. It really did work. I mean, obviously, two interceptions, could have threw three more really in that first half, but nothing was working. The ground game wasn't working. Defense wasn't making stops. Lenore Sellers looked like a shade of what he did the year prior. Now, mind you, Lenore Sellers is a really big, strong quarterback who can make plays with his arm and his legs, and he showed that in the first half. A&M, all intents and purposes, got punched in the mouth in that first half. You saw Shane Beamer going into halftime, pumping up his arms, doing a lot of, braggadocious things, because at that point in time, he had earned it. Like, he went into a top three hostile environment and was clicking on all cylinders, right? They were doing anything they wanted to against Texas A&M, and by all means, he earned the right to go ahead and act like that. The only problem with South Carolina was there was the second half. And in that second half, which has become A&M's calling card, is they went out there and they found a way to play their brand of football. They are a excellent second half football team. They are outstanding at finding ways to learn from their lessons, to find adjustments, and to go out there and play their brand of football. Now, to talk about it in totality, they had to go out there and play perfect in the second half. They really couldn't afford to give up 3 points. They really couldn't afford to not score on almost every single drive. And they went out there and they did exactly that. Right? Think about some of the big moments. 4th and 12, Marcel Reed in midfield. It's, third quarter is like 10 minutes in the third quarter. There's only 5 minutes off the clock, really. And A&M knew the urgency they had to play with, and Marcel Reed just let his athleticism go. He got picked up 16 yards, extended the drive. A&M scored a touchdown on that possession, and it just kind of started the ball rolling. Out there, A&M's defense went, got 3 and out, made a few stops, and just once the train got rolling and Big Momentum's changed sidelines, it changed completely, and it's just super impressive. Now, on one hand, you say, how did they let that get to that point where they had to make this courageous effort? And the other hand is, man, how do this is a team against all odds who has found a way to find their identity and to continue to win football games, even when it looks impossible. And they proved that it wasn't impossible. It was just improbable. So huge credit to Mike Elko, huge credit to this Texas A&M football team. And I feel like I've said this a few times, right? This is a team who has won and has continued to find lessons, right? How do you learn from these lessons? They're 10-0, and I still don't believe they've played a full, complete 4 quarters of perfect football. I don't know if it's possible, right? In the SEC, I don't know if that's something that's going to happen. But they haven't put it together on all three phases in a full football game, and it's still come out unblemished in the best conference in college football. It's just utterly impressive to do that. Now, as things get tighter, obviously Samford this week, and we'll give respect to a program that's out there and play 1-10 in their conference. Not really much to be talked about there. Sorry. Like to be honest with you, A&M is not going to lose this football game. I'm fairly certain of that. And all due respect in that regard, but A&M should go out there and handle business, be 11-0, and then walk into Austin and with all the marbles, whether it comes to SEC championship, whether it comes to first round buys, everything is going to be on the line there for them. And we're going to have to worry about that when we get to that. But for A&M, this team to continuously just find and invent ways to win football games is utterly impressive. It just really is. You look at a quarterback like Marcel Reed, who looked like he was seeing ghosts in the first half, right? Like it wasn't good. It was sketchy. I think there was a lot of things that South Carolina was doing that other teams are probably going to try to implement, right? When you look at this football game and you look at the way it unfolded, I think A&M should expect to see what they saw in the first two quarters to try to continue, to try to scheme up and fluster Marcel Reed. Now the problem is for them is Colin Klein, Marcel Reed, Mike Elko, all these guys are excellent at that adjustments. They'll change up their plays. Like you'll see, sometimes the deep shot isn't there. They'll go to the screen game, get their playmakers in space around the line of scrimmage. They'll run outside zone. They'll run things up the middle when they have to. They're just so adaptable. Their roster is so talented that they can go and adapt. I mean, Nate Borkshire, right? The tight end group as a whole has been a largely, for the most part, an afterthought in the passing game, right? But he gets 3 receptions, 40 yards, and he gets a touchdown. Those are the type of things where, like, hey, they're trying to take away KC. Mario's banged up. Ashton Bethel Roman, everyone's dropping passes. Marcel understands that, hey, we might have to start looking at different avenues here. And that's why he finds Nate over the middle for, a deep cross, 15 yards, and they just kind of keep it churning. Now, Ruben Owens a little banged up. We're going to monitor that this week. We're going to talk to Mike Algo, try to get to the bottom of that. Craver's probably banged up, but with Samford here in this game against Samford at Cop Field in Week 13, you wonder if A&M plays it safe, right? They played safe. They understand they probably got the horses in the stable to go and win this game, even without some of their star players. Now, we'll see what happens there, but it's just a really, really impressive effort, a really impressive football team, and I think to me it starts at the top. You look at a guy like Marcel Reed, right? 400 plus passing yards. After the first half, he did. I saw some national guy say it, and I forgot who it is, so my apologies on that. But just super, super big kudos to that kid to kind of wipe the slate clean at halftime, right? I tweeted it during the game from Kyle Field. I said, we're going to learn a lot about this football team in the second half. Did I think that they would roar back and win the football game? I can't say I did. I really can't say I saw that happening. So I just wanted to see fight from a team that was 10-0 or 9-0, excuse me, a team that hadn't seen that type of adversity, right? Like, it's one thing to go out there and scrap against Notre Dame, find a 1-point win, be down at half against LSU, but to go out and just get utterly dominated for 30 minutes. And then how do you respond to that? Because I think teams of A&M past would have wilted. There's teams in this conference right now that probably would wilt. Those are situations, I mean, 0 for 286 in 2004 in that scenario speaks for itself. Like nobody was able to come back in the last 21 years and find a way to win that football game, but A&M did. That's just a testament to this team. Now, it's a testament to this quarterback. It's a testament to this culture they're building. But when you just look at the way that Marcel Reed came up out of the fire and just made plays, made things happen, stayed within himself, stayed within the offense, didn't try to be Hercules, didn't try to be a superhero. My man just went out there and he played sound football. He changed the way he played. He was just a lot more comfortable. And that is just the mark of a guy who understands the role of a quarterback, role of a leader, role of like just understanding and buying into the system. Things could have gone really south for this team, and that loss would have been a very, very ugly loss, a very blemished, resume hurt, type of game there. So for them to come out of there and find a way to win that game is just utterly impressive. I've said it, 100 times at this point, but moving forward now, you got to look at what it means, right? You saw the committee last week credit Indiana for going and finding a way to scrap against Penn State with a backup quarterback. 3-6 on the road, finding a way to win game. That game was kudos to Fernando Mendoza in Indiana. I wonder how they'll view A&M Tuesday night when this all shakes out. Now, for peek behind the curtain, I'm recording this Monday morning, but I'm gonna say, and I think they're gonna look at it as a positive, right? Like you look at people have bad halves. People play tough quarters. Things happen, but how do you respond? And I think if you're looking for championship pedigree, you're looking for championship qualities. A&M showed it in a game where they absolutely did not have their best work, right? That was not their best performance. They'll tell you that. Mike Elko will be the first to tell you that. But to come out there and find a way to win a game despite that is just the mark of a championship quality team. Now, there's going to be a lot better teams in the playoff, right? They're not going to play South Carolina 3-6, 3-7. Now, you're not going to play these teams with losing records. You're going to play teams that are talented, maybe just as talented as you. That remains to be seen. But when they pick those 12 teams and you got to go tee it up in the playoff because A&M is a virtual lock for the playoff at this point now. It's the margin of error is so much thinner. So they're gonna have to go out there and they're gonna have to tighten up. They're gonna find a way to try to be, healthy, try to stay healthy, and try to keep everyone on their feet and playing football. But when you look at this, everything they've done is just super, super impressive. Now, when you look at the SEC championship game, and obviously A&M trying to find a way to win that and get in there for the first time since joining the SEC in 2012. It's going to take some things, right? Things are going to have to happen. They're going to first off have to win. If they win at Austin, they go 12-0. They're in the SEC championship. They'll be playing in Atlanta. Now, if it gets funky, they would need Alabama to lose to Auburn. They would need Ole Miss to lose to Mississippi State. So you kind of, without handling your own business in week 14, you would need other people to help you. But, you know, it's possible. There's a lot to figure out. There's still 2 weeks of football, including Sanford. Again, not trying to bypass them in any sense of the term. But, this is a football team that has earned the right to say, hey, like, this is a quality football team who's going to go out there and beat football teams. Now, it just is enough credit to be said about this team. Really is. Mike Elko, new contract, earned every bit of that. I understand that's the game that's played these days in college football. Your name gets thrown around in conversations. Teams want to secure and keep you in the program. That's what it looked like they did with the contract here. So Mike Elko is building something, and I think he's building something sustainable. I think if he didn't believe that Texas A&M was a buildable place, if Texas A&M didn't believe that Mike Elko was somebody that could build what they're looking for, I don't know if this gets extended the way it did. Looking at it, Mike Elko is in year 2 of a program. The change from last year to this year is just the evidence of just a grassroots movement of finding ways to be a real sustainable program. They started 7-1 last year, faltered down the stretch to finish 8-5. That feels like a million years ago, right? They got another offseason. They brought in key pieces. They brought in people to fit in this program. They built around their talent. They built around their strengths. And as a result, they're a 10-0 football team, the last standing in the conference as far as undefeated in conference play goes. And they're one of the 3 best teams in the country, undeniably, right? So now you sit here and say, what does the future look like? I want all A&M fans, if I could speak to anybody, is to just try to enjoy the moment, right? Try to enjoy what you got going on here because nothing is guaranteed beyond what you're standing and looking at this Saturday, next Saturday, whatever is in front of you is what you're guaranteed. But if you feel good about the idea of what this program can be and what can be built, you understand that there looks to be a monster growing in College Station, and that monster is being built by Mike Elko. Now, I don't think that's absurd to say. I don't think that's biased to say. Again, I always make it very clear. I'm a guy from Massachusetts with no ties to Texas A&M. When I watch and I see this team, and I've watched every single snap of football several times, and I've talked to people several times, and I see the demeanor, I see the mentality. I saw it at the SEC media days in July. I saw it in spring. I'm seeing it now every week when we talk to Elko and the players. This is a team with a different mentality than I think I've talked to people around the beat, talked to people in the fandom. It just feels different. And when it feels different, it smacks you in the face. And as far as this is concerned, this is something that's right square in the face of the 12th man. A&M is building something very real, very sustainable, and I think they should enjoy it. Now, there's a lot to be worked out. There's a lot of football to be played, but soak it all in, take it all in, understand that this isn't every year for some teams. This isn't every year for many programs, right? This is very few teams and very few programs that could feel this good about a squad in a given season. I feel like this is just scratching the surface of what A&M can be, and continuing that will be week 13 against Sanford. They got to handle business, and then we'll talk about Austin. We'll have a ton of content. We'll have a ton of conversations, some really good features, some stories to talk about. So before we get to that, A&M will have to handle business. But I just wanted to get on here on record and speak and just say, hey, Texas A&M is for real. They are the real deal. They are a team that absolutely is worth respecting. I know that, conversations I had and battered Aggie syndrome is something that gets thrown around, and the national media and fans of other teams like to poke fun. I guarantee that other teams and other programs and other fan bases wish they were in A&M spot right now with a coach who understands what it takes to build a program and is somebody who's able to execute that with the players that they have. So, huge kudos to this team. Huge kudos to Texas A&M, and we'll have more going forward. But that's it for today for Behind Enemy Lines. Again, I'm Tony Catalina from the Austin American-Statesman. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I'll catch you next week. Peace.